What's up, guys? How you guys feeling? It's the Cassius Morris Show. Thanks for tuning in to this live edition. Just making sure that we're streaming on all of the platforms here, making sure that the word is out on all of my social media pages, as you can see. But thanks for joining me. This has been a crazy week for media. There has been so many things that have been groundbreaking. Of course, news with Joe Rogan, which we're about to jump into. TikTok has hired the CEO of Disney. Somebody from Disney to be their new CEO. There's tons of stuff going down. And of course, unfortunately, Sam Tripoli being shadowbanned from social media. So we're going to jump into all of this right now. But first off, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to this show. It's been a lot of fun. I've been pumping out a ton of content, man. Just going live. And, you know, I always tell everybody I'm never going to tell you how to cope with like a COVID-19 sort of quarantine situation. But I will tell you how I cope. And this is how I'm coping. I'm basically just pumping out content, staying communicated with my listeners, and trying to put a smile on people's faces. So hopefully I can deliver that. So the first thing I wanted to get into here was, of course, the champion of podcasting himself, Mr. Joe Rogan, has just signed a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal with Spotify. So this news was just broken on the Joe Rogan podcast. He put it out on Instagram. He put it on Twitter, all of his social media. And, you know, this is a really interesting development for podcasting for a couple of reasons. The first thing is that Spotify has spent close to $1 billion on acquiring original podcasts and original content, not only for audio, but for video as well. That's one of the main things that I don't think people understand about this deal. People seem to think that since Rogan is moving to Spotify, he's moving to audio. That's not the case. Spotify is now making it so that you can actually watch podcasts on their service, and now Rogan is going to be leaving YouTube because of that and just going to Spotify. So this is a really interesting situation. Now, it's being speculated that the reason that this is happening is because YouTube has been really hitting hard with censorship. This is something that's been happening for, I think, the past 2.5 years, something like that. And YouTube has rolled out basically rules that you can't speak on certain things. Certain topics will be restricted. And even if it has millions of views, if you're not talking about something that they like and that goes with their narrative, you're going to get removed from their site. And I think it's interesting to see people like Joe Rogan, somebody who's that big in this world, sort of vacating from that site as this comes to light. I'm not exactly sure that it's a coincidence. I'm not exactly sure that it's unintentional. And I think that there's something to that. You're watching a lot of people starting to get away from it. And it takes me back to when Apple was the biggest media giant, because you got to remember what happened with Apple before they had the Apple Podcast app. Before they had the Apple Podcast app, all the podcasts available through Apple were available on iTunes. So you would go in the same app that you would get your music from, and you would get Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla, this show, whatever it may be. Then they rolled out the podcast app. And as a podcaster, I happened to notice that the interaction, the level of listeners, the level of even downloads, if you want to go that far, it was never the same when they vacated from the music streaming platform, because I think it was too much for a lot of people to go to a different app to get their podcasts, if that makes sense. And I know a lot of people got used to it, and a lot of people use the Apple Podcast app and stuff like that. But originally, it was there with the music. So I think that we're seeing almost a renaissance in that sense with streaming services. I think that Spotify, being that it has music in it, and they're incorporating podcasts, and they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on acquiring original content. I mean, we have to remember the last podcast deal that Spotify signed was for $250 million when they acquired a show. Now, even if we didn't factor that in, let's just forget that, forget any other deal they've done. For Joe Rogan to sell his show, and even though he claims he has full creative control, for Rogan to sell his show at this peak of popularity, I think we're talking at least $300 million. I think any report, because a lot of the reports, even Forbes, are saying this is in the neighborhood of $100 million. It's in the neighborhood, but let me tell you something, folks. They're being fucking moderate with that. If you think about the payout for the Howard Stern show, which this is being compared to, very much so, because there's never been a situation where a show like this that was widely available has been transferred to a quote-unquote paid service, even though Spotify has some free stuff, since Howard Stern. So you look at the Howard Stern deal, he was paid $500 million for the entire organization to go to Sirius. Now, the biggest thing that people got to remember, and Howard's the first person to tell you this, is that Howard Stern did not get $500 million in his bank account, because he had to pay an entire organization. He had to pay a news team. He had to pay a television crew. He had to pay all these different people. When you look at an operation like Joe Rogan, which is worth just as much, if not more, dare I say, than Howard Stern in 2020, you're looking at, in the same neighborhood of money, but you're looking at a guy who has one assistant in the room. And he has maybe one or two other people to pay, be it a graphic designer, maybe people to handle his YouTube. I'm sure he has people to handle his social media. But the profit margin, this is the point, the profit margin is so much higher for a guy like Joe Rogan because he has a small operation. But he's managed to make it at the level of people who literally have buildings coast to coast full of employees on payroll. I'm talking CNN, Fox News. I'm not sure if everybody realizes this, but Joe Rogan has more viewers than these people. He has more viewers than probably Fox and CNN combined, just when you actually look at the stats. So, this makes sense to me. First of all, I think it's completely well-deserved and well-earned. Rogan is really, obviously, the godfather of podcasting, and it's needless to say, but I think that everything that Joe Rogan does helps advance everybody who's doing a podcast. I remember a couple years ago, there was people who were saying, "What's a podcast? I've never heard of it." That was, just about 5 years ago. So you fast forward until now, and there's people getting 100 million, 200 million, 350 plus $1 million deals to do their podcast. It's fucking insane, So I think everything that, be it Joe Rogan, Mark Maron, Adam Carolla, everything that these guys actually do to advance podcasting and to get the word out there. I mean, look at these articles. We got TechCrunch, we got Forbes, everything that's done in that regard to get the name of podcasting out there in our art and what we do, and to prove that it can make you money. I've learned from these guys. I've learned from guys like Joe Rogan. I've learned from guys like Adam Carolla. You don't want to get into this game for the short-term money. You can make a couple bucks off of Amazon, and you can make a couple bucks if you want to hawk ads or do whatever you want to do. If you guys haven't noticed, if you ever listen to this podcast, it's never sponsored by so-and-so. I used to do that. But listen, when you're not a massive show like Joe Rogan, he makes a fuck ton of money. I mean, listen, don't count out what you can make. It says right here in Forbes, Rogan made $30 million last year off of YouTube broadcasts and ad revenue and live shows. So let's not count out how much you can make off of advertising. I'm just saying, though, when you're not a big show like that, and then you're chasing that ad money, you're chasing small money. See, I'm dropping game for you guys right now. If you're going to chase that ad money and you're not at Joe Rogan level, you're fucking up. So, Cassius, what should I do? Chase being at Joe Rogan level first. Okay? If you can get ads, that's great. If you can get sponsors, that's great. Take them. Make your little money on the side. But don't bank on that little money, because it's really not going to get you anywhere. You're probably going to make more going to work at a fucking gas station, unless you can literally get, 100,000 downloads for every single episode and have people actively clicking your ads and doing this shit. That's why it's so difficult to make money in podcasting. But I'm not going to drop too much game right here for free. No free game. And I'm thinking of maybe doing like a podcast teaching series, actually, just to really cover the fundamentals of what podcasting is and what it takes. So I'm thinking of doing something like that, but that'll come in the future. But to summarize this, basically, my main points are that this is well-deserved. This is a big, paradigm shift when it comes to podcasts. When you look at 5 years down the line, a lot of these guys are going to be I think most podcasts are going to be available on Spotify, and I think that Spotify is going to take over this market. So we can mark it down. We got the date and the time stamped on this live video. It's Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. My 5-year prediction is that Spotify is going to take over the podcasting market. All of the biggest podcasters are going to be on it, and this is going to be the way to do it. Because if YouTube really wants to get in the ring with people like me, and people like Joe Rogan, and people like you and I, or whoever the fuck has a podcast, they're not going to win. And the reason they're not going to win, folks, is because we are here doing these podcasts because we want to say what the fuck we feel. I want to say what's on my mind. I don't want a time restriction. I don't want to have to say ads. I don't want to have to answer to a fucking boss. I don't want to do any of that shit. I don't want to have to explain myself for what I say to anybody but my listeners. So that's why we're doing a podcast. So if you're going to jump in and take that away, we will go and do our shows elsewhere. I don't fucking need to pander to YouTube. I don't get paid from YouTube. And I've been very open about this. YouTube refuses to pay me. I must have done something wrong along the line, whatever it may have been. YouTube refuses to pay me for my videos. So I've decided to go make my money elsewhere. Again, don't get distracted with the small money. If you want to get distracted by small money, Joe Rogan would still be on a fucking couch right now interviewing his fucking neighbor. Okay? There's a reason that Joe Rogan's where he's at right now. So, very interesting. I think, again, this is akin to the Howard Stern Sirius deal, and shouts out Joe Rogan for that. And so now this is running with the theme of YouTube censorship, okay? Because I obviously had to bring that up. And I was talking about this on Twitter today, if I had my phone. And basically, I just had to call it out because I saw that Sam Tripoli, well-known comedian out of Los Angeles, was actually shadowbanned. Completely shadowbanned. Now, let me start here. If you don't know what the word shadowban means, join the club. I think most people don't know what shadowban means. To be shadowbanned means that you're essentially banned from every social media platform you could imagine. And that's exactly what happened to Mr. Sam Tripoli, who's a fine comedian, by the way. Sam Tripoli has been on this podcast. He's incredibly good at what he does, and he's incredibly talented at podcasting. However, for some strange reason, well, I don't want to say some strange reason, because I always get on here and give people shit by saying a lot of the times people act like they don't know. You know, it's like, you know, people will say, why did my boyfriend cheat on me? It's like, well, you know, I guess he was bored. You know what I mean? It's like, stop acting like you don't know. So I'm not going to act like I don't know why this was taken down. Sam Tripoli runs a podcast called the Tinfoil Hat Cast. And essentially it's a conspiracy theory podcast. So they jump on there and they talk about the most controversial conspiracy theories you could imagine. 9/11, Obamagate, fucking John Lennon making a comeback, as Joey Diaz said. Really anything you could think about. And I think that's fine. You know, personally, I'm not a weekly listener of the Sam Tripoli podcast because I'm not a huge conspiracy guy. However, and that's the theme of this story, I like the fucking choice to be able to hear it. But now I don't have the choice. Because Sam Tripoli says, wow, I've actually hit the cycle for everyone. In 1 week, I got all 4 major tech companies, Twitter, YouTube, Apple, and Facebook, to suspend and shadow ban or just plain screw with me. Today I found out that Facebook dinged my company page for who knows what. And here he's put a photo of, he has disabled or limited activity on his comedy page, which is not affiliated with the conspiracy theories. This is where he makes his money, and this is his bread and butter. And he has limited access on there because he's also been banned on everything else. So, again, we're talking about the laws on YouTube and the rules that people are doing of basically censoring anybody with a differing opinion. They've taken Alex Jones off. They've taken so many people off. There's been epidemiologists talking about different theories about the coronavirus, and while I don't subscribe to any particular theory about the virus because I'm not a doctor, it is interesting to hear different points of view. And these videos are being taken down. And this is one of the strangest examples of it because, let's be honest, he's far bigger than me, but Sam Tripoli is not a household name. It's not like the Tinfoil Hat podcast is being broadcasted coast to coast in every household in the world here. But you would think that it's not even on the radar, for something like YouTube. It's just comedians who are very successful and great at what they do talking about their opinions. Why would this be a threat to YouTube? Why would this be a threat to Facebook or Apple? It's very, very strange. So again, this goes with the theme of you're seeing people starting to make transitions. And if you're seeing somebody like Joe Rogan jump ship from YouTube, this has been in the making for a while, and there's a reason for that. So these services it's almost like they're starting to turn on people, and it's almost like they're starting to turn on anybody who's really willing to speak their mind. It's very strange. But this really pisses me off, because as we're looking at here, Sam Tripoli not only had his podcast page banned, but he had his comedy page banned. And this guy obviously needs to tour, and it's not possible right now, but he needs to get the word out, tour, and make his bread and butter, make his money. That's what he does. So why would Facebook want to take that ability away from him because he has a differing opinion? And this is what I put on Twitter. I can even pull the tweet up as to not paraphrase it, because I don't want to fuck it up. But I was talking about the fact that they can't take our rights away as consumers, because essentially it is a right being taken away. I don't want to paraphrase the tweet. But it's right here. What happened if you don't like it, don't listen to it. Corporations banning shows from the internet takes freedom of choice away from us as consumers. It's not right. That's exactly how I feel. It's absolute bullshit. I think Alex Jones should have the right to go on and say whatever crazy shit he says, but be it eating fucking toads or gay toads or whatever the fuck crazy crack smoking lunatic shit that he's got going on. I think he should have the right to go on his show, say that every single day and night while he's smoking his meth and staying awake for 48 hours. I'm just joking. I love you, Alex Jones. I don't love him. I think he has the right to do that. Who the fuck am I? And frankly, who the fuck are you to tell him that he can't do that? And I'm talking to YouTube. Who the fuck are you guys to say that he can't do that? Because you don't agree? So let's say, that's the thing. This is the beginning of a slippery slope. It's like if you ban cigarettes. It's like if you ban cigarettes because they're bad. And then you want to ban the next thing because it's bad. But who are you to determine what's bad or what's good? I think it's up to the person, the consumer, to determine what's bad or what's good. And that's what's really pissing me off. So if this continues, I am perfectly willing to jump ship from YouTube as well and go to a different platform. I've been using YouTube. Again, I said they're not paying me. They claim that I've made some sort of infringement, and they're not able to tell me what it is, which is fine. I guess they have millions of requests. There's probably not a real person even responding. But I would be more than happy to go to another platform. Frankly, I'm on 10 to 15 to 20 different audio platforms. We do very well on there. And if we want to do video, we can do it elsewhere. So my message to YouTube is, we don't need you. Content creators do not need YouTube. We can use countless other video hosting sites, or we can just go live on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it may be, or we can just make our own site. We don't need you. So I think YouTube's going down a really slippery slope. Again, they just lost the biggest podcast in the world. So this is really going to be interesting to see what it's like moving forward for podcasting in general, in the landscape of YouTube, in the landscape of censorship, and really watching who's going to jump ship and who's really going to move on from this, and who's going to, I guess, become a corporation bitch. And the thing is, like, I feel like I'm not too much at risk because I usually do music and entertainment. So I'm interviewing entertainers, musicians, talking about their new albums. I'm not really at risk from any censorship laws because I'm not really saying anything controversial too much on the air. I'll have a controversial guest, but it's not really me who's saying it. And it's not like it's a theme of me coming on and saying my political opinions and blah, 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 blah. And frankly, I don't do that for a reason, because even when you're open-minded, so to speak, like Joe Rogan, who, he often likes to come on and provide the middle ground, I guess you would call it. He still gets called by a lot of people, either, a liberal bitch, a corporate liberal, blah, 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 or a Trump supporter, a MAGA guy, this and that and the other thing. It really doesn't matter what you say. People are going to try to pick at it. So again, I'm not at risk in that regard because that's not my style of show. but we're all in this podcast shit together. Just like I say that any good thing for podcasting affects us all, I think anything like this affects us all too, because it affects the bottom line, it affects our art, and it affects what we do and what we can say, and really how we get paid. You know, you're genuinely at risk to have your livelihood taken away for expressing your opinion. So it's very strange times with podcasting, very strange times with the internet, but we're not going to get all the answers tonight. But I just wanted to hop on and talk about this. I really hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. I definitely did. Just, hopping on, seeing what you guys were doing and talking about some relevant stories. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. The link is in the Facebook video right above and in the YouTube video right below. But of course, if you're on YouTube, just subscribe right there. Again, I appreciate you guys for listening to this. And I'm about to log off here. Take care, guys.